What if I told you that a billionaire's greatest treasure wasn't his fortune, but the laughter of 4 children who changed his life forever? Gabriel Shaw sat in his expansive office, a panoramic view of the city stretching beyond the glass walls. He was a man who had built an empire from nothing, a billionaire whose decisions could sway markets. But today, none of that mattered. He stared at his phone, the words of the doctor still echoing in his mind. "We've done all we can, Mr. Shaw." There is no medical explanation for Sophia's silence. His daughter, Sophia Shaw, had always been a vibrant, joyful child, but something had changed. Months ago, she simply stopped speaking. No warning, no apparent cause. Her once bright laughter had faded into a hollow silence. She avoided eye contact, her small hands clenching nervously whenever anyone tried to speak to her. Therapists, neurologists, child psychologists, Gabriel had sought out the best of them. Each promised answers, yet all had failed. Gabriel leaned back, his gaze fixed on a framed photo of Sophia on his desk. In the picture, she was beaming, her wide, sparkling eyes full of life. A life that now seemed so distant. "How can I have everything, yet be so helpless?" Gabriel whispered, his voice cracking. Money had always been his weapon, his shield. He could control anything, fix any problem with enough influence or resources. But not this, not Sophia's silence. A knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. His assistant, Marie, stepped in. "Mr. Shaw, your next meeting is ready." Gabriel waved her away, unable to focus on business. "Cancel it. Cancel everything for today." Marie hesitated. "Sir, it's the board meeting with the international partners." "I don't care," Gabriel replied, his tone sharper than he intended. "Just, please, Marie." Marie nodded and quietly closed the door, leaving Gabriel alone again with his thoughts. He stood, walking over to the glass wall, his reflection a silhouette against the bustling city below. A world where he was a giant, yet in his own life, he felt so small. That evening, Gabriel returned home to a mansion that felt more like a museum grand, beautiful, but cold. He made his way to Sophia's room, where the soft glow of a nightlight cast gentle shadows. Sophia sat by the window, her gaze lost in the garden beyond. Gabriel hesitated at the doorway. He had always been a man of action, a man of solutions. But now, with his own daughter, he felt powerless. "Sophia?" he whispered, his voice gentle. She didn't turn, didn't speak. Only the faint rustle of the trees outside filled the silence. Gabriel's chest tightened. He stepped closer, kneeling beside her. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm here." But there was no response, only silence. In that quiet moment, Gabriel Shaw, a man who had conquered industries, felt utterly defeated. And as the night deepened, he wondered how he could save his daughter when he didn't even know how to reach her heart anymore. Days turned into weeks, and the silence remained. Gabriel Shaw had transformed his mansion into a fortress of expertise. Every day, specialists came and went, child psychologists, neurologists, speech therapists, each one offering hope, only to leave with the same look of quiet defeat. Sophia would sit by the window, her gaze distant, a doll cradled in her arms. Gabriel tried everything. He read her stories, played her favorite music, even filled her room with the softest toys. But she remained silent, her world locked away behind a wall he couldn't breach. One evening, Gabriel sat across from Dr. Harrison, a renowned child psychologist. "Mr. Shaw, I understand your frustration, but sometimes the mind is a mystery even to us. Sophia has no physiological issues. This may be psychological, or it may be something beyond our understanding." Gabriel's jaw tightened. "I don't believe in beyond understanding, Doctor. There is always an answer. I just haven't found it yet." Dr. Harrison sighed, placing a hand on his briefcase. I admire your determination, Mr. Sure. But have you considered that perhaps Sophia doesn't need another expert? Maybe she just needs her father. And Gabriel's gaze darkened. You think I haven't tried? I've given her everything. I'm here, aren't I? Being present is not the same as being there, Dr. Harrison replied gently, his voice calm. Sometimes a child needs to feel seen, not just looked at. Gabriel watched as the doctor left, his words lingering like an unwelcome guest. What did he know? Gabriel was a father who had fought for his daughter with everything he had. Yet somehow, it wasn't enough. That night, as the house settled into a somber quiet, Gabriel wandered through the halls, his footsteps echoing. The grandeur of his home felt oppressive, each lavish room a reminder of all he had achieved and all he couldn't fix. He paused outside Sophia's room. The door was slightly ajar. He saw her silhouette, small and still, framed by the soft glow of the nightlight. Taking a deep breath, he stepped inside. "Sophia?" he whispered. No response. He approached her slowly, lowering himself to the floor beside her. For a moment, he didn't speak. He simply sat there, his presence a quiet promise. "I don't know what to do," he murmured finally, his voice cracking. "I don't know how to help you." Sophia's gaze remained fixed on the garden beyond the window. "I thought I could fix anything," Gabriel continued, staring at his own reflection in the glass. "I thought if I worked hard enough, if I brought in the best, I could save you, but I can't reach you. Reach." And tears he didn't even realize were there began to well in his eyes. "Sophia, please, just tell me what you need." But there was only silence. Defeated, Gabriel rose, his shoulders heavy. As he turned to leave, he noticed something, a small drawing tucked beneath Sophia's pillow. He pulled it out gently. It was a crayon drawing, a little girl standing beside a tall figure, both smiling under a bright sun. It was simple, childish, but it was something. He looked at Sophia, but she didn't react. Still, for the first time in weeks, Gabriel felt a spark of hope. The next morning, he made a decision. No more experts, no more grand solutions, just time. Time with Sophia, without expectations. He cancelled his meetings, set his phone aside, and spent his days by her side. They walked in the garden. He told her stories about his childhood even when she didn't respond. He brought her favorite books, read them aloud, letting his voice fill the quiet. One afternoon, as he was reading, he paused, glancing at Sophia. "Do you remember this one, sweetheart? You used to giggle at the silly bear who got his head stuck in the honey jar." For a brief moment, he thought he saw a flicker in her eyes, a hint of recognition. And in that fragile hope, Gabriel Shaw discovered a new resolve. He would not just fight for his daughter. He would learn to be with her. Weeks passed, and though Sophia remained silent, there were small changes, tiny ripples in the stillness. Gabriel Shaw had set aside his business empire, his phone left forgotten on a desk somewhere. His life now revolved around Sophia. They walked together in the garden every morning. Gabriel talked about anything and everything, stories from his childhood, the places he had traveled, the funny moments he remembered. Sometimes he felt like he was speaking into a void, but he refused to give up. One afternoon, while walking by the lake on the estate grounds, a soft giggle broke the silence. Gabriel's heart skipped a beat. He turned to see a group of children playing by the water's edge. 3 small figures, a boy with messy brown hair, another with a serious expression but a gentle smile, and a tiny girl with bright eyes and a boundless energy chased each other, laughing and splashing water. Sophia's gaze lingered on them. Her lips parted slightly. It was the first time Gabriel had seen even a hint of interest in her expression. "Would you like to say hello?" he asked gently, his voice careful, as if one wrong word might shatter this fragile moment. Sophia didn't respond. But she didn't turn away either. Taking a deep breath, Gabriel guided her toward the children. As they approached, the children noticed them. The boy with the messy hair, Ethan, waved. "Hi. Want to play with us?" Sophia hesitated, her hand clutching Gabriel's coat. But Ethan's warm smile was disarming. His friends, Lucas and Emily, smiled too, and soon they were introducing themselves. Gabriel learned that they were siblings, though not by blood. Orphans who had been together since they could remember, surviving on the kindness of strangers and their own determination. They spoke with a brightness that seemed to defy their circumstances, their laughter infectious. "Come on," Emily giggled, reaching for Sophia's hand. At first, Sophia's fingers were stiff, reluctant, but then slowly, she let go of Gabriel's coat and took Emily's tiny hand. Gabriel watched, a knot of emotion tightening in his chest. He stayed back, watching as Sophia followed the children, her steps cautious but willing. They played by the lake, skipping stones, chasing each other through the tall grass. Gabriel watched, afraid to blink, afraid this fragile moment might vanish. But Sophia smiled a small, tentative smile, but it was real. When the sun began to set, Gabriel called for Sophia, and she reluctantly returned to his side. He knelt down, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Did you have fun?" Sophia didn't answer, but she looked at him. Not through him, but at him. That night, as Gabriel tucked Sophia into bed, he saw something he hadn't seen in months, a tiny sparkle in her eyes. Hope. Over the next few days, Gabriel made sure to take Sophia to the lake. Ethan, Lucas, and Emily were always there, and each time Sophia seemed a little more willing to join them. Gabriel watched, keeping his distance, but always close enough to see. The children were a miracle, their laughter, their kindness, their effortless way of drawing Sophia out of her shell. He hadn't planned on them being part of her healing, but now he couldn't imagine this journey without them. One afternoon, as the children ran around the lake, Gabriel struck up a conversation with Ethan. "You're all here every day. Do you live nearby?" Ethan's smile faltered slightly. "We don't really live anywhere. We just stay where we can. Sometimes in an old barn down the road, but it's okay. We've always been together." Gabriel's heart tightened. "How long have you been on your own?" Lucas, the serious one, chimed in. "Since we were little." "But we take care of each other. That's what family does. Family." The word hung in the air, heavier than Gabriel expected. He looked at Sophia, who was laughing, actually laughing, as Emily spun her around. That night, as Gabriel lay in bed, he stared at the ceiling. His world had always been about control, power, and wealth. But these children, with nothing but each other, had given Sophia something he never could joy. And for the first time, Gabriel wondered if perhaps he wasn't just trying to save Sophia. Maybe they were saving him too. Gabriel Shaw found himself returning to the lake every day, not just for Sophia's sake, but for his own. The laughter of the three children, Ethan, Lucas, and Emily, seemed to breathe life into the air. Their carefree joy was contagious, and for the first time in years, Gabriel felt something stirring within him, a quiet sense of peace. Sophia no longer needed to be coaxed. Each morning, she would hold Gabriel's hand, leading him toward the lake with a gentle urgency. It was there that she would break free, running to join the others, her quiet smile growing brighter with each passing day. Gabriel would sit on a nearby bench, his eyes following Sophia, but his mind often drifting. He had spent a lifetime building an empire, accumulating wealth and influence, but none of it had prepared him for this, watching his daughter come alive in the company of three children who had nothing. One crisp autumn morning, as the children played a game of tag, Ethan paused and looked toward Gabriel. Hesitating for a moment, he jogged over, his face serious. "Mr. Shaw," Ethan began, his voice polite but curious. "Why do you come here every day?" Gabriel smiled, surprised by the question. to spend time with my daughter. Yeah, but you just sit over there, alone. The boy's words were innocent, but they struck something deep within Gabriel. He cleared his throat. Well, I want to give her space. Let her play. Ethan nodded, thoughtful. You know, you can play too. It's not just for kids. Gabriel chuckled. I'm not sure I'm any good at games anymore. You don't have to be good. You just have to join. Ethan smiled, then turned and ran back to his friends, calling out to Sophia. Gabriel watched them, his heart a mix of warmth and longing. Later that evening, as Gabriel and Sophia walked home, he noticed the leaves beginning to turn, their colors warm and vibrant. Change was in the air, a reminder of how fleeting time could be. Back at the mansion, Gabriel prepared dinner, something he hadn't done in years. The kitchen staff offered to help, but he waved them away. He wanted to try. As the simple pasta dish came together, Sophia watched him from the kitchen island, her eyes following his every move. He set 2 plates on the table, smiling at her. It might not be as good as what Chef Louis makes, but I promise it's made with love. Wait. Sophia looked at him, then at the plate. For a moment, Gabriel's heart raced, worried that she would ignore him, that the quiet wall would return. But then, she picked up her fork and took a bite. A small smile touched her lips. It's good, she whispered her first words in months. Gabriel's hand shook slightly, tears welling in his eyes. He didn't want to startle her, so he simply smiled. I'm glad you like it. That night, as he tucked her into bed, he leaned down and whispered, I love you, Sophia. Her tiny hand reached out, touching his cheek. I love you too, Daddy. The next morning, as they walked to the lake, Gabriel felt a lightness he hadn't known in years. The children were already there, playing by the water. This time, Gabriel didn't sit on the bench. He walked with Sophia, joining the circle. Mr. Sure, come play, Emily called, waving enthusiastically. Gabriel laughed, feeling a bit foolish, but he joined them. They played a simple game of catch, and soon he found himself laughing, truly laughing, as Ethan tried to balance on one foot, and Lucas pretended to be a fierce dragon, chasing the others. Hours seemed to pass in minutes, and when the sun began to set, Gabriel realized how much he had missed this, the simplicity, the joy, the freedom of simply being. As they walked home that evening, Sophia clutched his hand a little tighter. Daddy? Yes, sweetheart? Can we invite them over for dinner? Gabriel's heart swelled. I think that's a wonderful idea. And so, the following evening, the mansion that had always felt so empty was filled with laughter and chatter. Ethan, Lucas, and Emily were wide-eyed at the grand hall, but Gabriel insisted they relax, encouraging them to simply be themselves. The children ate with gusto, sharing stories of their adventures, and Gabriel listened, captivated. Sophia sat beside him, her eyes shining, her voice joining in the laughter. It was as if she had never been silent. That night, as the children left, Ethan looked up at Gabriel. Thank you, Miss Dean. Sure, for letting us in. Gabriel placed a gentle hand on the boy's shoulder. No, Ethan, thank you for reminding me what matters. As the door closed, Gabriel stood in the grand foyer, the echo of their laughter still lingering. For the first time, his home didn't feel empty. And for the first time in a long while, Gabriel didn't feel alone. Days turned into weeks, and the once silent halls of Gabriel Shaw's mansion were now filled with laughter. Sophia's voice, once a distant memory, was now a warm, constant presence. And it wasn't just her voice, it was Ethan's, Lucas's, and Emily's too. The 3 children had become a daily part of their lives. They played in the garden, read stories in the cozy library, and spent rainy afternoons drawing by the fireplace. Gabriel found himself smiling more, laughing more. He cooked dinners, joined their games, and even learned the names of the flowers in his garden, because Emily loved to pick them. One Sunday morning, As Gabriel was setting the table for breakfast, Ethan approached him. Mr. Sure. Why do you let us come here every day? Gabriel paused, placing a plate down gently. Because you're a part of our family now. Yeah. Ethan's eyes widened. Family? Yes, Gabriel smiled, kneeling to look the boy in the eye. Family isn't just about blood. It's about who you love and who loves you back. As Ethan hesitated, then hugged Gabriel tightly. For a moment, Gabriel was too surprised to move. Then he hugged the boy back, his heart swelling with warmth. But beneath the joy, Gabriel couldn't ignore a growing concern. He knew the children had no real home, no security. They had been living on the kindness of strangers and their own resilience. And as much as he wanted them around, he also knew they deserved more. They deserved stability, safety, a real future. That evening, as the children laughed over a game of charades, Gabriel made a decision. He would speak to them. He would offer them a place in his home, not just as visitors, but as part of his family. The next morning he called his lawyer, Michael Carter, a man he trusted with his most important matters. Michael, I need to discuss a possible adoption. Adoption? Michael's voice was surprised. Gabriel, are you sure? This is a huge decision. Boom, I've never been more sure, Gabriel replied, looking out the window at the garden where Sophia was playing with the children. They need a home, and I think I need them too. Michael agreed to start the process, but he warned Gabriel that it wouldn't be easy. Legal procedures, background checks, and the children's status as orphans would all need to be clarified. But Gabriel was determined. That evening, as the sun cast a warm glow over the garden, Gabriel gathered the children around. Sophia stood beside him, her hand in his. I have something I want to ask you, Gabriel began, his voice gentle. Would you like to stay here? Not just for visits, but to really stay? To be a part of our family? Ethan's mouth fell open. Lucas's eyes widened, and Emily looked at Sophia, then back at Gabriel. You mean we could live here? Like a real family? Gabriel nodded. Yes, like a real family. For a moment, the world seemed to pause. Then Emily let out a delighted squeal, throwing herself into Gabriel's arms. Lucas tried to maintain his composure, but tears filled his eyes. And Ethan, ever the big brother, simply smiled, his voice steady but filled with emotion. We'd love that. Sophia squeezed Gabriel's hand tighter. I told you, Daddy. They're my friends, my best friends. Gabriel's chest tightened with emotion. And now, they're our family. The following days were filled with excitement. Gabriel's lawyer, Michael, began the paperwork. The children were enrolled in school, each given their own rooms in the mansion, which they were allowed to decorate however they wished. Ethan filled his room with books, Lucas chose a space filled with art supplies, and Emily's room became a garden of stuffed animals and colorful drawings. Gabriel watched them with a mix of pride and disbelief. His once silent home was now a place of joy, and his once lonely heart was now full. One evening, as Gabriel stood by the window, looking out at the garden where the children were playing, Michael called, Gabriel, I've started the adoption process, but there may be complications. The children's status is uncertain. They have no official records. Whatever it takes, Michael. Do whatever it takes, Gabriel replied firmly. They're my family now. As he hung up, Sophia came running to him. Daddy, come play with us. Gabriel smiled, letting the weight of his worries slip away. I'm coming, sweetheart. And as he stepped outside, joining the laughter and joy, he knew he would fight for them. He would do whatever it took to keep his family together. Gabriel Shaw had always been a man who solved problems with a phone call. Deals were made with a signature, obstacles cleared with influence. But as he navigated the complex world of adoption, he discovered that love was not something that could be fast-tracked. Michael Carter, his lawyer, kept him updated on the progress.
Gabriel, the children's records are a mess. No birth certificates, no documented guardianship. It's like they've never existed in the system.
While Gabriel paced his study, frustration boiling beneath his calm exterior. But they exist. They're here. Their family. I understand. Michael's voice was calm. But legally, we have to establish their identity, their history. We may need to petition the court, gather statements, even track down anyone who might know them. Gabriel looked out the window, watching Sophia play with Ethan, Lucas, and Emily in the garden. Their laughter was like music, and he couldn't imagine losing them. Do whatever it takes, Michael. I don't care what it costs. As the legal process dragged on, Gabriel's patience was tested. He had never felt so powerless, waiting on bureaucracy, on signatures and approvals. But he wasn't alone. The children sensed his anxiety, though they didn't understand it fully. Is something wrong, Mr. Shaw? Lucas asked one rainy afternoon, his usual calm gaze filled with quiet concern. Gabriel smiled, trying to hide his worries. No, Lucas, everything is fine, but Sophia was more perceptive. That evening, as Gabriel was tucking her into bed, she whispered, Daddy, you're afraid. Gabriel paused, taken aback. What makes you say that, sweetheart? Because you look at us, and sometimes you look like you're going to cry. Gabriel felt a tightness in his chest. He sat beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose any of you. Sophia leaned against him, her tiny arms wrapping around his. You won't, Daddy. We're your family. Her words were a balm to his heart, but the uncertainty remained. One evening, as the rain tapped against the grand windows, Michael called. Gabriel, I have some news. We've located a woman who may know the children, an old caretaker who worked at a now-closed orphanage. She claims to remember them. Gabriel's heart raced. Is that good news? It's a start. If she can testify, it may help us establish their status, but we need her cooperation. I'll speak to her myself, Gabriel decided. The next morning, Gabriel told the children he had a meeting and asked Marie, his trusted assistant, to stay with them. Then he and Michael drove to a modest, weathered house on the outskirts of the city. An elderly woman, Mrs. Clara Henderson, opened the door. Her grey hair was tied in a loose bun, and her eyes, though clouded with age, were sharp. You're the man asking about Ethan, Lucas, and Emily? Yes, Ma'am, I'm Gabriel Shaw, and they mean everything to me. Henderson invited them inside. Her small home was filled with photographs of children, each one carefully framed. I worked at Riverbrook Home for Children for nearly 30 years. Those three, they were always together. Ethan was the protector, Lucas the thinker, and little Emily, always so full of joy. Gabriel smiled, recognizing the children in her words. Do you know what happened? How they ended up alone? Mrs. Henderson sighed, her gaze distant. The orphanage closed, funding ran out, many children were placed with other homes, but some slipped through the cracks. I tried to keep track, but they vanished. I always prayed they were safe. Whoosh! They are now, Gabriel assured her. But I want to make it permanent. I want them to be my family. Can you help? Tears shimmered in Mrs. Henderson's eyes. You love them, don't you? With all my heart, Mrs. Henderson nodded. Then I will help. I will testify. I will tell the court everything I know. As Gabriel and Michael drove back, Gabriel felt a weight lift from his shoulders. It wasn't over yet, but there was hope. That evening, as the rain cleared and the sun dipped below the horizon, Gabriel returned home. Sophia, Ethan, Lucas, and Emily ran to greet him, their laughter a warm embrace. Gabriel knelt, pulling them into his arms.
I missed you all. Ethan looked up, his eyes bright. You're smiling, Mr.
Sure. Because I have good news, Gabriel said, his voice steady but full of emotion. We're going to be a family. A real family. The days that followed were a whirlwind of paperwork, phone calls and meetings. Gabriel Shaw had fought battles in boardrooms, but nothing had ever felt as important or as nerve-wracking as the fight to keep his family together. Michael Carter worked tirelessly, gathering statements, tracking down records, and coordinating with Mrs. Clara Henderson, whose testimony became a cornerstone of their case. She described Ethan, Lucas, and Emily's time at the orphanage, their bond, and the tragedy of their disappearance when the home closed. But bureaucracy was a formidable opponent. Gabriel found himself sitting in cold, impersonal offices, listening as judges and caseworkers debated the children's futures. They questioned his intentions, his suitability, even his understanding of the challenges of raising 3 children who had known hardship. One particularly difficult day, a stern-faced judge peered over his glasses. Mr. Shaw, you are a man of great wealth and influence. But love is not something you can buy. How do we know you truly care for these children and that they are not simply a charity project? Gabriel felt his temper flare, but he forced himself to remain calm. Your Honor, I may be wealthy, but I am also a father. I have watched these children bring my daughter back to life. I have seen their kindness, their resilience. They are my family, and I will fight for them, no matter the cost. The judge's gaze softened slightly, but the battle was far from over. At home, the children sensed the tension, though Gabriel did his best to shield them from it. Ethan, ever perceptive, asked one evening, Mr. Shaw, are they going to take us away? Gabriel knelt in front of him, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. No, Ethan, I won't let that happen. We are a family, and I will fight for you. But as the days dragged on, doubt began to gnaw at him. What if the system didn't care? What if love wasn't enough? What if he lost them? Then, one rainy afternoon, Michael called. Gabriel, we have a court date, the final hearing. If all goes well, the adoption will be approved. Gabriel's heart raced. When? Next week, be ready. That night, as the rain tapped against the window, Gabriel couldn't sleep. He stood in the hallway, watching the soft glow beneath the children's bedroom doors. His mind raced with fears of losing them, of returning to a silent, empty house. A soft voice pulled him from his thoughts. Daddy? He turned to see Sophia, her sleepy eyes filled with concern. Why are you up? Gabriel smiled, kneeling to her level. Just thinking, sweetheart. Are you scared? Gabriel hesitated, then nodded. A little. Sophia wrapped her arms around him. You said we're a family. Families don't leave. Her words were simple, but they pierced through his fear. He hugged her tightly. You're right, sweetheart. Families don't leave. On the day of the hearing, Gabriel dressed in a simple dark suit. The children wore their best clothes, though they fidgeted nervously. Sophia held Gabriel's hand tightly, her gaze fixed ahead. At the courthouse, they were met by Michael, who smiled reassuringly. Just speak from your heart, Gabriel. Ashan, the hearing room was quiet, its walls lined with wooden panels and shelves of legal texts. The judge from before sat at the bench, his expression serious but not unkind. Clara Henderson testified first, describing the children's history, their bond, and her belief that Gabriel was giving them a loving, stable home. Ethan, Lucas, and Emily were asked a few questions, and though nervous, they spoke of their love for Gabriel and Sophia. Finally, Gabriel was called to speak. He stood, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Your Honor, he began, his voice steady but emotional. I never imagined that 3 children I met by a lake would change my life.
I thought I was helping them, but the truth is, they saved me. They brought joy back into my home, life back into my daughter's eyes. They are my family. I cannot imagine a future without them." And the judge leaned back, folding his hands. "And you understand, Mr. Shaw, that being a father is not just a responsibility of provision, but of patience, guidance, and unconditional love." Gabriel nodded. "I do, Your Honor, and I promise I will love them, protect them, and guide them as long as I live." The room was silent for a moment that seemed to stretch forever. Then the judge smiled. "In the matter of Ethan, Lucas, and Emily, I hereby grant the adoption petition. Congratulations, Mr. Shaw. You are now officially their father." Gabriel's breath caught, tears welling in his eyes. The children ran to him, hugging him tightly. Sophia joined them, and they were a tangle of laughter, tears, and joy. As they stepped out of the courthouse into the sunlight, Gabriel felt a lightness he hadn't known in years. He looked down at his children, his family, and smiled. "Come on," he whispered, his voice warm with emotion. "Let's go home." Bam. The sun was warm on their faces as Gabriel Shaw and his children stepped out of the courthouse. Ethan, Lucas, Emily, and Sophia clung to him, their laughter a chorus of pure joy. Gabriel felt a lightness he hadn't known in years. A weight lifted, a future finally secured. They celebrated with ice cream at a cozy little parlor, where Sophia and Emily giggled over their sundaes. Lucas carefully constructed a tower of whipped cream, and Ethan, ever the practical one, tried to convince the others to save some for later. "Daddy, does this mean they're really our family forever?" Sophia asked, her voice filled with excitement. Gabriel smiled, wiping a bit of chocolate from her cheek. "Yes, sweetheart, forever." As they returned home, the mansion felt different, not just a grand house, but a true home. The laughter that filled its halls was no longer temporary, it was theirs. Gabriel found himself falling into a new rhythm. Mornings were a flurry of preparing breakfast, packing lunches, and making sure everyone had their shoes on the right feet. Evenings were spent with bedtime stories, art projects scattered across the living room, and the gentle chaos of 4 young voices. But it wasn't always perfect. As the weeks passed, Gabriel discovered that being a father wasn't just about joyful moments. It was about patience, understanding, and learning to navigate the challenges of 4 very different personalities. Ethan, the eldest, was responsible, but sometimes carried too much on his small shoulders. Gabriel had to remind him that he didn't always need to be the caretaker. Lucas was thoughtful, but his quiet nature sometimes made it hard for him to express his feelings. Gabriel made it a habit to sit with him at night, just talking, letting Lucas open up at his own pace. Emily was a whirlwind of energy and emotion. She laughed the loudest, cried the quickest, and hugged with all her might. Gabriel learned that sometimes she just needed someone to listen, even when her stories were a chaotic blend of fantasy and reality. And then there was Sophia. She had grown from the silent, withdrawn girl she once was into a joyful, confident child. But Gabriel never forgot how fragile she had once been, and he made sure she always felt seen and loved. One crisp autumn afternoon, as they played in the garden, Sophia looked up at Gabriel. "Daddy, can we plant a tree? A family tree?" "So we'll always remember." Gabriel's heart swelled. "That's a beautiful idea, sweetheart." They chose a spot near the garden's edge, where the sun shone brightest. Gabriel brought home a young oak tree, its roots wrapped in burlap. Together, they dug the hole, Gabriel with the shovel, the children with their tiny garden spades. As they carefully lowered the tree into the ground, each child added something special. Ethan placed a small toy car, Lucas buried a sketch he had drawn, Emily added a colorful ribbon, and Sophia gently pressed a tiny note she had written, though she didn't share what it said. When they finished, Gabriel stepped back, placing his hands on his hips, dirt on his sleeves and a smile on his face.
There we go, our family tree. Emily clapped, her eyes shining. It's going to grow so big.
Just like us, Ethan added, his tone proud. That evening, as they gathered for dinner, Gabriel watched his children laughing, sharing stories, and teasing one another. The table was a beautiful chaos, a mix of voices, spilled milk, and second helpings. After dinner, as he tucked them into bed, Gabriel paused by each door. He whispered goodnight to Ethan, reminding him that he didn't have to be strong all the time. He hugged Lucas, telling him that his quiet strength was a gift.
He kissed Emily's forehead, promising her that her joy would always be a light in their home. And finally, he sat beside Sophia, who smiled up at him. "Are you happy, Daddy?" she asked softly.
Gabriel felt a warmth spread through his chest. "I am, sweetheart, happier than I've ever been." As Sophia's tiny hand slipped into his. "Me too." As he turned off the lights and closed the door, Gabriel stood in the hallway, listening to the soft whispers and giggles that still drifted from the bedrooms. His once silent mansion was now filled with life, and as he walked down the stairs, passing the framed photographs that now lined the walls, pictures of family outings, laughter in the garden, the children's smiling faces, he felt a quiet sense of contentment. He paused by the window, looking out at the garden where the young oak tree stood, its leaves rustling in the gentle breeze. It was just a tree for now, but one day it would be tall and strong, its branches reaching for the sky, just like his family. Gabriel smiled, a tear slipping down his cheek. For the first time in his life, he truly understood what it meant to be rich. Winter arrived, and with it came the first snow. The Grand Shore mansion, once a cold and silent place, was now filled with warmth and joy. The children pressed their faces against the frosted windows, their excitement infectious as the first flakes began to fall. "Daddy!" "It's snowing!" Emily shouted, her voice a burst of delight. Gabriel smiled, setting down his newspaper. "Then I guess we better get outside, don't we?" Within minutes, the children were bundled up in scarves, hats, and thick coats. Gabriel helped them fasten their gloves, laughing as Lucas struggled with his. Together, they raced into the snow-covered garden, their laughter filling the crisp air. Ethan quickly took the lead, gathering snow and rolling it into a large ball. "We're making a snowman," he declared, his enthusiasm spreading to the others. Lucas added a second, smaller ball for the body, while Emily giggled as she tried to balance the head. Gabriel brought out a carrot for the nose, a scarf, and a pair of old buttons he found in the drawer. Sophia stood back, watching with a quiet smile. Gabriel walked over, gently placing an arm around her. "Not joining them?" "I will," she whispered, her breath misting in the cold. "I just like watching them first." Gabriel's heart warmed. "You know, this is your family." "You helped bring them here." Sophia leaned against him. "I know, Daddy." "And I'm happy." The snowman was a masterpiece of lopsided charm, and the children gathered around it proudly. But as they stood back to admire their work, Emily's laughter suddenly turned into a surprised squeal. A soft whoosh of snow exploded against her shoulder. Ethan stood a few feet away, grinning mischievously, a fresh snowball in his hands. "Oh, you're in trouble now," Emily shouted, grabbing her own handful of snow. A full-blown snowball fight erupted, the garden becoming a battlefield of white powder. Gabriel found himself dragged into the chaos, his laughter mixing with the children's. Snow flew through the air, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. Eventually, out of breath and covered in snow, they retreated inside. Gabriel had the fireplace lit, and the children changed into warm, dry clothes. Soon, they were huddled on the oversized couch, wrapped in blankets, their cheeks pink with cold. Marie, Gabriel's loyal assistant,
brought in steaming mugs of hot chocolate, each topped with a mountain of whipped cream. I'd say you all had quite the adventure out there. Gabriel grinned, wiping a bit of whipped cream from Emily's nose. It was a battle for the ages. The children giggled, and as they sipped their hot chocolate, their eyes grew heavy with contentment. Later that evening, as the snow continued to fall outside, Gabriel found himself sitting by the window, watching the garden. The snowman stood like a silent guardian, its crooked smile a reminder of the joy they had shared. Sophia joined him, curling up beside him in the armchair. "Daddy?" "Yes, sweetheart? Do you think we'll always be this happy?" Gabriel's heart tightened. He thought of the years he had spent chasing success, the emptiness of his grand mansion, the silence that had once haunted these halls. And now, with his children, with their laughter, with their love, he felt truly alive. "I think happiness is something we choose, Sophia. It won't always be perfect. We'll have good days and bad days, but as long as we're together, we'll always have a reason to smile." As Sophia smiled, resting her head against his shoulder. "I like that." Gabriel wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. "And I love you. I love you too, Daddy." As the night grew deeper, the other children, one by one, wandered into the living room. Ethan curled up with a book. Lucas pulled out his sketchpad, and Emily busied herself arranging the small collection of snowflakes she had made from folded paper. Gabriel watched them, a gentle smile on his face. This was his life now, a life filled with love, laughter, and the quiet comfort of knowing they were a family. But even as he sat there, his heart full, he couldn't help but think of the world beyond their cozy walls. The world that had once been everything to him, but now seemed so distant. "Daddy?" Emily's voice pulled him back. "Can we bake cookies tomorrow, like we did last time?" Gabriel chuckled. "Of course we can. But I expect everyone to help." The children cheered, their excitement filling the room once more, and Gabriel, watching them, felt a peace he had never known before. As the fire crackled and the snow continued to blanket the world outside, Gabriel Shaw knew one thing with absolute certainty. This was his family, his home, his heart. Spring arrived with a burst of color, the garden blooming with vibrant flowers, and the young oak tree, their family tree, began to sprout fresh green leaves. Gabriel Shaw watched it from his study window, a quiet smile on his face. It had been a year since he first met Ethan, Lucas, and Emily by the lake. A year that changed everything. Life in the Shaw household had settled into a beautiful rhythm. Gabriel's days were no longer measured by board meetings and stock prices, but by school runs, family dinners, and bedtime stories. The children had grown, each finding their place in this little family they had built. Ethan had become a natural leader, excelling in his studies and helping his siblings with their homework. Lucas had discovered a love for painting, his room filled with sketches and colorful canvases. Emily, ever the bright spark, had joined the school's drama club, her laughter a constant presence in the house. And Sophia. Sophia had blossomed. The once quiet girl who lived in silence now danced through the halls, her voice a sweet melody that filled the mansion. She had even made new friends at school, but she always returned home to her brothers and her father with a smile. One Saturday morning, as they gathered for breakfast, Emily spoke up, her face serious. "Daddy, can we have a picnic by the lake, like when we first met?" Gabriel's heart warmed. "I think that's a wonderful idea." Then within an hour, they were packing baskets with sandwiches, fresh fruit, and a pitcher of lemonade. Gabriel carried the large picnic blanket, while the children each brought something special, Ethan with a frisbee, Lucas with his sketchpad, and Emily with a bag of cookies she had baked herself. They walked to the lake, the sun warm on their faces, the breeze gentle. As they spread out the blanket beneath the tall, swaying trees, Gabriel felt a wave of peace. The lake sparkled under the clear sky, its calm waters reflecting the beauty of the day.
The children played, their laughter mingling with the sound of birdsong. Gabriel watched, his heart full. He pulled out a book, leaning back against the tree, but his eyes kept drifting to them, to his children, his family. After a while, Sophia wandered over, sitting beside him. "Daddy?" "Yes, sweetheart?" "Thank you." Gabriel smiled, surprised. "For what?" "For everything. For being my daddy. For giving me a family." Gabriel's chest tightened with emotion. He leaned down, kissing her forehead. "No, Sophia, thank you. You showed me what love really means." A gentle silence settled between them, broken only by the soft rustle of leaves. Then Ethan called out, "Dad, come play with us." Gabriel laughed, setting his book aside. "All right, but don't go easy on me." They played until the sun began to dip below the horizon, the sky painted in hues of orange and pink. As they packed up, Gabriel took a moment to look around at the lake where everything began, at the children who had brought light back into his life. On the walk home, Sophia slipped her hand into his. "Daddy?" "Yes, sweetheart. Will we always be together?" Gabriel paused, kneeling to look her in the eye. "Always, Sophia. Families are forever." That night, after tucking them all into bed, Gabriel found himself standing by the window, looking out at the moonlit garden. The young oak tree stood tall, its branches swaying gently in the breeze. A quiet voice broke the silence. "Can't sleep?" Gabriel turned to see Marie, his trusted assistant, who had become more like a part of the family than just an employee. She smiled, stepping beside him. "I was just thinking about how much has changed, about how I almost lost them, about how I almost missed this." Marie placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You didn't miss it, Gabriel. You chose it, and they chose you." He smiled, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. "I was so afraid of losing control, but letting go, it gave me everything." Marie nodded. Sometimes, the best things in life are the ones we never planned. As she walked away, Gabriel remained by the window, the gentle rustle of the oak tree soothing his thoughts. He thought of the man he had been, powerful, successful, but so very alone. And now he was a father, not just to Sophia, but to 4 beautiful children who had filled his world with light. He whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude, his heart overflowing. The next morning, the children raced down the grand staircase, their voices a chorus of energy and joy. Gabriel laughed, following them, and as they burst out into the garden, he looked up at the oak tree, their family tree, growing strong and tall. Life would continue. They would have challenges, they would have struggles, but they would face them together. Gabriel Shaw was a billionaire, a man who had conquered industries. But his greatest achievement was here, in the laughter of his children, in the warmth of their hugs, in the joy of being their father. And for the first time in his life, he truly understood what it meant to be rich. In a world that often measures success by wealth and achievement, the story of Gabriel Shaw is a powerful reminder that true happiness cannot be bought. Gabriel, a billionaire surrounded by luxury, discovers that his greatest treasure is not in his vast fortune, but in the love of his daughter, Sophia, and the 3 orphaned children who bring light back into their lives. For older American audiences, this story is a heartfelt reminder that life's most precious moments come not from money or status, but from the simple joys of connection, kindness, and family. It is never too late to open your heart, to welcome love, and to build a family, even if that family doesn't look like what you once imagined. As we age, it is easy to become set in our ways, to focus on what we've built and what we own. But Gabriel's journey teaches us that the true measure of wealth is found in the laughter of loved ones, the warmth of shared moments, and the peace of knowing you are never alone. Remember, you are never too old to find love, to heal, and to create a family filled with joy.